Joyous time zones, my Sakonauts. I'm Sako Tumi, also known as the Witch of Tylwyth Teg, and today we are talking about magic in the material world in Condensed Chaos by Phil Hine. Okay. Boop. Maybe turn it down just a little bit more. Oh, I still have it on multi-output. Is it too loud? I can't tell. It is too loud. There we go. That's better. I'd like to start this morning with a grounding ritual to start your day. This starts near your domain, so if you've not created a domain, you might want to sign up for my newsletter, which is linked below. Hi, Katarina. Yay. All right. What's going on here? Sit with your hands in your lap and close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it for a moment. And as you let it out completely through your mouth, let go of the tension from the night and the grogginess of the morning. Take another deep breath in, and as you breathe in, imagine you are breathing in pure love. As you breathe out, imagine you are breathing out forgiveness. Take a third deep breath in, and as you do so, imagine a light coming in at the top of your head. It enters at the top of your head and spreads down over your face, neck, and shoulders. This cleansing light now expands along your back, down your legs, and out through your feet. It is as if cleansing light is a constant flow of soothing energy entering from your head and passing out through the arches of your feet. You are just outside the door of your domain. The air is crisp and cool. The evergreens sway slightly in the breeze, and the ground has a large patch of moss at your feet. Step barefoot onto the moss. Feel how soft it is. Feel the solid ground underneath. That light coming into your head can now be translated into energy that you can send out your feet. Convert the light into roots and send the roots out the bottoms of your feet and deep into the earth, as deep as you can. How close to the soil is fresh, easy to toil, easy to carve a path down. Feel how anchored you are, how close to the earth. Reach as far down as you can. The earth hugs your roots comfortably, no matter how sharp or curly, no matter how many times they split off. Slowly pull the roots back up the way they came. Your roots slither through the dark, the soil filling in its wake. Pull the roots back into your feet, convert it back to the light, and let the light filter through you and out the top of your head. Take one more deep breath in and begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. When you are ready, open your eyes. Welcome. If you're just joining us, we just did our morning grounding ritual. Hi, Allie. What's up with my... It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm just noticing really weird things today, that's all. Hello, my darlings. Let's check out our self-care deck card for today. Words, I can use them, I swear. I had the words right in front of me and I still tripped over them. Can you guys hear the music? I might have screwed up and not shared the audio. Stop screen, share screen. Yeah, there we go. How's that? Is that a little better? Yeah, okay, cool. All right. Okay. Let's see what's up. The Five of Swords. Looks like it's gonna be a main lady. Five of Swords. What's the point of winning when you have no one to share your successes with? Even though you may have won the argument, you are in danger of losing your relationships and reputation. Fully loaded in survival mode, you'll do whatever it takes to smoke out the competition. You're in a constant state of conquest and striving no matter what the costs. This need to be right is inflating your ego, driven by fear of losing control. Your ambition is to be admired, but it also drives people away with the fear that you will eventually throw them under the bus. Achievements are met with resentment instead of the acknowledgement that you secretly desire. Ask yourself if you feel fulfilled by your wins and at what cost. Lose the battle, win the war. So, thoughts on that? Jeez. So I have been planning, I'm sure most of you have seen it already, and I'm going to do a video on it today. Excuse me. But, hi, Sage. How's it going, love? Oh, where was I? So I am planning a fundraiser that will be 3 weeks in succession, like every Saturday in March, basically. And there was a point to that. Oh, I'm hoping that people look at it as acknowledgement. Oh no. Well, feel free to lurk and take care of yourself, honey. All right. Kind of feel like pulling a room. What did I do with my head? All right. I'm gonna pull a room. Because if my ambition is being looked at as toxicity rather than acknowledgement, then maybe I should come at it a different way. Maybe 8 hours is too long. And the good news is, finally got the book cover sorted, and it was a simple fix. Can't believe it. I know those feels. Sometimes you got to step away and come back, and then the answer is so fucking simple that you are just flabbergasted that you didn't come up with it sooner. That's why I like step out on the porch. I smoke a cigarette, but you know, some people could do something else that occupies their hands and mind. Okay, here we go. Oh no, oh no. Okay. I'm not sure which direction it goes. I don't know. Let's find out. Oh. Looks like this guy. Right? Okay. Success, understanding, trust, hospitality, generosity, sensual union, and gift. Well, I definitely had a sensual union last night. And technically speaking, we did a spell last week, today. That we hope to get strange gifts from unusual places. And I have not yet received a gift, so I am looking forward to whatever that means. But maybe I should be more generous. I don't know. It's a charity stream. It doesn't get much more generous than that. How does that work? Or maybe that's what it's calling me out on. It's like, hey, you're being generous. And maybe my generosity is like scoffed upon. Is my generosity being scoffed upon? Me raising money for my mom for her cancer treatments. All right, let's get into that book. All right. Really? That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Nature taking care of you. Strange get from unusual place indeed. It was a day or two after I did that cleansing. Nice. A little bit of self-love there. Self-love and self-protection. So that's awesome. I'm taking that as proof that the cleansing worked. Yeah. Since you're no longer having dreams that are affecting you negatively, right? All right. The 19th century revivalists of magic have bequeathed to us, their magical children, a false dichotomy of high magic and low magic. High magic is about becoming more spiritual, and low magic, or sorcery, is merely the manipulation of the mundane material world. The philosophical roots of this dichotomy lie in the post-Enlightenment Christianity, wherein a wedge was driven between the spiritual, the domain of the church, and the temporal, the playground of the emerging scientists. The occult revivals of the last century sought to reconcile the spiritual yearning with the new power of science, while the power of orthodox religion melted in the flames of war, rapid social change, and the rise of technology. Oddly enough, it is science itself, once the enemy of spiritual impulse, which now offers reconciliation. Oh, hello, Spence. Feel free to lurk. We don't gotta be chatty. I will do all the talking. All right, where was I? Oddly enough, it is science itself, once the enemy of spiritual impulse, which now offers reconciliation. The revolutions of quantum physics and nonlinear dynamics are now returning us to awareness, long hidden, that the world is magical. That we are, as Alan Moore so eloquently put it, unpredictable beyond the dreams of Heisenberg. The traditional high magicians created towering edifices in abstract space, which they used to climb towards their idea of Godhead, seeking transcendence from the embrace of the material world. A few notable amongst these architects of the spirit have spectacularly fallen from the heights they scaled, and biographers have provided us with neat encapsulations of their blazing passions. While legions of clerkish scribblers still present us with the gleanings of their visions, their notations and systems. But their time has passed. Magic is no longer the domain of the wealthy, and we need no utterances from rebel angels to announce the uncertainty of the future. Although it is ever the folly of the young to sneer at the mistakes of their forebears. Let us not forget that, in essence, their magics worked, and we are here. Even now, I feel the stirrings of the next generation of magi, and it is my fervent hope that they too will surpass the present generation, that they will not be seduced by the past, but will take magic forward. Just as transcendental emphasis of the 19th century magi reflected the driving passions of their age, so too does contemporary magic show up at the dominant characteristics of the latter end of the 20th century, a faith in technology and a magpie's view of culture. In any of our Western cities, we can daily experience the cultural melting pot of styles from anywhere in the world, from any place or time. So too, we see the tendency to reduce magic to a profusion of techniques as the would-be magi increasingly search for better techniques, quicker results, instant enlightenments. The present technologists of the spirit run the same risks as the previous generation's architects of the abstract, of narrowing their vision, the abstract. Magic is powerful. It is dangerous, as is anything that provokes change. One may be driven towards magic, be seduced by its glamours, or washed up against its shores through crisis, but it is most definitely not for all. No more than one would indiscriminately feed people powerful psychoactive drugs or leave children to play with dangerous machinery. This is the seduction of technology, that its creators distance themselves from the uses to which their creations are put, and its glamours are seductive in the short term, whereas the consequences are somewhat different. In the 60s, we were fed the glamour of the utopia through the harnessing of nuclear power. 30 years later, the glamour has soured somewhat. It is the same with magic. What we imagine magic will enable us to become, and what we actually become after years of practice, are usually quite different. That is profound. I need to make a note of that. Actually, I shouldn't cover that. Can I mark this? Where's my... Ah, there it is. Come here. Come here. Ah, sorry. That was like right in the mic, I'm sure. Profound. The ability to perform advanced acts of magic requires years of effort, years of study, training, practice, analysis, and growing self-awareness. These years... Oh, wow, a typo. He didn't capitalize something. These years are valuable. The passage of time allows us to grow, to create our own codes of ethics and honors, forming the roots of our power and the bedrock upon which we build our magical reality. As is often said, a powerful magician stands alone in the crowd, to some degree alien or inhuman. Many yearn for this state, feeding the ego with feelings of superiority and the wish that others may see them as wise. What is less often stated is that the adept magician, who feels his separateness all too keenly, is more likely to mourn the loss of innocence, if only secretly. One cannot shape the world without being reshaped in the process. Each gain of power requires its own sacrifice. The game of magical consequences never ends. The emergence of chaos magic has given rise to a shift in the emphasis of modern magic. Sorcery, or magic that is directed toward an observable result in the real world, has, up until recently, thought to be not quite the done thing, as opposed to the quest for spiritual perfection. In the same way that scientists and mathematicians turned away from trying to get to grips with nature, which was, well, messy, and wouldn't always conform to neat formulae, and instead chose to examine events which were so small and abstract that it is difficult to see how they relate to everyday life. So much of magical practice relates to inner experience that it is all too easy for an individual to convince himself that he is a great magician on the basis of inner experience alone, and not the ability to phenomenize the experience into action. Thus, one tends to run into people who proclaim themselves to be magically potent, although it becomes clear that they are woefully impotent when it comes to matters of ordinary life. So the further we get into magic, the more it alienates us from society. Take a quick break, because then we'll start talking about intent. All right. Statement of intent. Consequently, if magic is to be effective, we must be able to assess our performance and, moreover, relate to the magical techniques that we use to what emerges out of that use. Which is to say that if, for example, you perform a ritual invocation of a particular entity for a specific purpose, you need to be able to be aware in what ways the ritual work resonates into your life. Chaos magic addresses this issue by placing a rigorous emphasis on the statement of intent, in all caps. All formalized acts of magic require a statement of intent, which is basically structured along the lines of, it is my will to do something for a designated result. I will explore the practicalities of this in due course. It is my will. Which gets fuzzy when you are doing sigil work. Because I use the letters of the, much like Phil Hine does in here, I use the letters of my intent to make the sigil. And to have it is my will in every single sigil is interesting in that I try not to make it look the same every time, but there is always like a basis, like it is my will is the basis, and then I build the other layers around it in various fonts and various design aspects. All right, self-assessment. In addition, chaos magic places an emphasis on self-assessment. Unfortunately, each individual's capacity for self-delusion and blindness to problem areas does not somehow cease when a certain level of magical proficiency is attained. It is always easy to ignore or sweep aside that which does not fit into our dominant image of selfhood. In some magical or mystical systems, the responsibility of assessment is shifted onto the master or guru, someone who is supposed to have special insight into one's character and know what is the right thing for the student to do next. Within the chaos approach, responsibility for action and movement rests ultimately within each individual. Certainly, you may seek advice or different perspectives through any means open, from consulting with spirits, divinations, or asking your friends what they think, but the responsibility lies with you. The ability to examine your behavior, thoughts, and feelings with a degree of dispassion and objectivity is a skill which, once you begin to use it, can be applied to any areas of your life. Which is why journaling is such a big freaking deal, right? Oh, and then we talk about models again. Models and metaphors. It's going to be interesting. I think I need to share my stream on Facebook. It is a Sunday. Talking about chaos magic this morning, and could boop. All right. Models and metaphors. Despite the seeming complexity of occult theories, the hierarchy of inner planes, chakras, energy lines, archetypes, souls, Akashic records, karmic debt recovery agencies, and so forth, they tend to share a common tendency of rendering descriptions of the phenomenal world, where we spend most of our time, into very simple terms. Chaos magic tends to reverse this kind of modeling and tends to generate very simple models for describing abstract experience, while recognizing that the sometime need for using complex models for getting to grips with the phenomenal world. Peter Carroll, the foremost exponent of chaos, points out that it is characterized by a cavalier approach to metaphysics, based on the recognition that metaphysics are, after all, subject to belief. Many occult belief systems consist of a hodgepodge of metaphysical speculations which are accepted as truth, and which have additional bits bolted on as those who create them try to cram anything and everything into the same model. Scientists once believed they could arrive at a grand theory of everything and anything. Occultists are attempting the same thing, although it tends to manifest as attempts to merge divergent systems such as tarot, runes, and I Ching together. Chaos magic, however, is characterized by a willingness to use different models and learn from them. Thus, chaos magicians use metaphors from chaos theory, ecology, biology, psychology, science fiction, computer programming, management theory, and anything else that which might prove interesting or potentially useful. The chapter in this book dealing with chaos servitors is a result of my studying the principles of programming a computer using COBOL language. I never actually became adept at COBOL programming, but it gave me a useful perspective with which to examine the magical techniques I was using at the time. Using this particular model led me to wonder if some properties of the model were possible to transfer into magical action, and by experimentation, I found they were. Although not quite in the way I expected. Encountering new models and metaphors can sometimes fire us with enthusiasm and new explorations and creative leaps into the darkness of the unknown. But models, magical or otherwise, can become subtle traps. It seems all too easy, another typo, all too easy for us to embrace a new model or reality map, yet to suddenly find that we have bound ourselves within its limitations. But some models are particularly suited for specific tasks and situations. Rather than attempting to stretch one model so it can account for everything and anything, the chaos approach encourages one to use the model which is most appropriate for the situation. Some years ago, I was approached by an acquaintance who requested that I create a protective talisman for her home. Now, there are many different approaches for this kind of magic. It would have perhaps been easiest for me to create a shield about her home, which could have been done without too much fuss or props. However, I wanted my acquaintance to feel that something definite had been set up, so we opted for a ritual of angelic invocation using all the pomp and formality of the Kabbalah, which left them in no doubt that mighty forces had been marshaled in order to protect the home from anything or anyone who might intrude with malign intent. If our basic models of reality are changed, then suddenly much of what we take for granted about the world can be called into question. It is a common tendency to behave as if our metaphors and maps are true. If we choose to live according to the statement, nothing is true, then we are bound to acknowledge the fragility of a metaphor as being no more than it is. Chaos has shifted the emphasis from seeking that which is magical as that which lies beyond the known world, but recognizing the world itself is magical. Self and other. One of the most basic relationships is that of self and other, me and everything else, us and them. Even this relationship is informed by the dominant model of reality, which is based on the 19th century notions such as the absolute separation of mind from matter, the mechanical nature of the physical world, and the distinction between subjectivity and objectivity. In this model, which is our consensual description of experienced reality, the mind makes sense of random chance events which happen to the exterior objective world. I lost my place. But a description that, nope. I'll have to start that paragraph over. Hello, Raven. Let's see. Longest sentence ever. This is not so much an accurate description of the world, but a description that, on a grand scale, confirms and supports much of our self-conceits about humanity's relationship with the rest of the planet. Models tend to make the world a simpler place, shape experience to conform our expectations, and also do a neat job of justifying our superior position to everything else. A good example of the reductionist modeling is the creation of stereotypes. We all use stereotypes to varying degrees. They can be positive, acting as role models or ideal types, or negative stereotypes, which are a response to anxiety or loss of control. I keep losing my place. A simpler example yet is the tendency to describe our own behavior as a response to a given situation while attributing the behavior of others to their personality. A specific example within the magical context is that while you might well invoke A specific example within the magical context is that while you might well invoke deities, interpreting them as archetypes or subpersonalities, how far do you accept that those deities might have an existence, purpose, and intentions that are separate and beyond your own? Thus, on various levels, as we describe meaning, intentionality, and purposiveness, a hell of a word, to ourselves and forget the other. It might be it other people or other species. Where is this relevant to magic? Like many other patterns within our consensual reality, I'm telling you, the consequences of this self-other distinction are rarely questioned. However, the chaos magic perspective demands that the magician be capable of looking beyond the facade of paramount reality for the underlying complexities and patterns. Chaos places an emphasis upon attention to detail, to being wary of tendency to become uncritical of that which seems on the surface to be self-evident. On the more practical level of sorcery, the use of enchantments to actualize desire, it is all too easy to view a situation in terms of our viewpoint being the most important, or that our perspective of an event is the only one that counts. The ego magic techniques of chaos magic allow you to shift perspectives and look at a situation from another person's viewpoint. The relativistic perspective of chaos magic emphasizes that situations and events are rarely as clear-cut as we would like them to be. There is also the question of how the self is regarded. Although science has more or less driven out the religious concept of the immortal soul, it still tends to make a distinction between inner and outer experience by upholding the mind-body divide, the ghost in the machine. Magical theories which, like scientific theories, were codified and generalized in the 19th century, tend to reinforce the division to various degrees. In contrast, chaos supports the view that the mind arises from the body. On the surface, this appears to be a reductionist argument, which is a criticism which has been leveled at chaos magic on more than one occasion. More than one occasion. However, there is more to the concept that divesting ourselves of essentialist qualities. Many magicians use the term body-mind to signify that the mind and body should be considered a unified whole. If this can be accepted, then the whole subjective-objective distinction is called into question. Moreover, this viewpoint is supported by chaos science, which has not only highlighted the fact that the objective world, which was once thought to be measurable, quantifiable, and explainable following the mathematic rules, has a high level of fuzziness and indeterminacy, but also that the subjective world of the mind can be examined using analytical tools. Not only is there no ghost in the machine, but the idea of a physiological machine moving through a passive environment has been shown up to be rather simplistic. Chaos philosophy developing the idea of interdependent systems, ecologies, which have the inherent capacity for self-organization. Ooh, my fingers. As a purely practical example, go out into the woodlands or a similar natural space. You are entering a dynamic ecosystem whose elements include flora, fauna, local history, geographical and geological features, mythic associations, seasonal variations, and weather. When you enter it, you become another element in a mesh of interrelated dynamics. Your experience of being within this place will depend on your interaction with other elements, many of which you are likely to be unaware of, at least initially. Before you start to impose any magical significance onto the place, observe it. Be aware of your own relationship with it, and you might be surprised. This illustrates another basic point about the self-other dynamic, that we can often be too eager when it comes to attributing meaning and interpretations into a situation and not allowing for other meanings to make themselves known. Rather than upholding differences between self and other, chaos magic supports a celebration of diversity and difference. If nothing is true, everything is permitted, then there is no purpose or grand cosmic scheme to life beyond what we choose to impose or believe. To some, this is cynicism. For the chaos magician, it is a breath of dizzying freedom. Achievable reality. Magic is the set of techniques and approaches which can be used to extend the limits of achievable reality. Our sense of achievable reality is the limitations which we believe bind us into a narrow range of actions and successes, what we believe to be possible for us at any one time. In this context, the purpose of magic is to simultaneously explore those boundaries and attempt to push them back, to widen the sphere of possible action. Doubt and cynicism are dominant social attitudes in this last decade of the 20th century. One of the first barriers that you will encounter is the doubt that whether magic can possibly work in the first place. Like sex, magic needs to be experienced directly before it can be fully understood. A single act by which you demonstrate that magic works to yourself is worth 1,000 books on so-called occult theory. Much of what passes for magical theory is a hodgepodge of borrowed concepts, ranging from maps of the inner planes derived from the theosophy to popular psychology and alternative physics. For the chaos approach, the question of how much it is true is irrelevant, since it is the adoption of a belief which makes it viable rather than its coherence. Most occult theories are treated in the same way as general scientific descriptions of the world. That is, they are presumed to be true independently of human experience and passed down from book to book without being questioned, and eventually pass into general acceptance to the level that some people become quite upset if you don't appear to subscribe to them. This type of theory is known as the theory of action. One of the problems that some people find when encountering chaos magic is its tendency to discount orthodox magical theory in favor of personal experience. However, there is another type of theory in use, which is of greater use to the contemporary magician. Theory in use relates to the guidelines and patterns that a magician learns through personal experience and practice. Theories in use cannot be taught, but arise of the results of applying magic in your life. While books and other people can give you knowledge of magical techniques, it is up to you as to how you apply them and what theories and beliefs you weave around the results of your application. There are no correct ways of performing magical acts, just the ones that work for you. Magic is about becoming more flexible. Therefore, you should not be surprised if you find yourself changing your ideas about magic from time to time. That suggests that magic, hold on. One, why are you so tiny? There we go. That magic works by this process of you learn by doing, which honestly seems a little irresponsible to promote when referring to meddling with the fundamental forces of the universe. I don't know about irresponsible. Do you want to expand on that thought a little bit, Raven? Oh, never mind. I see they were suggesting a spectrum of how one learns to perform magic. Yeah, there is a spectrum. All right, one more section and then we'll wrap up for today. Magical power. The concept of power within magic. It should also be understood that magic is not only concerned with pushing back the boundaries of achievable reality, but also understanding that some self-imposed limitations can as much be a source of power as restriction. What is power anyway? It is one of those words which gets thrown around a lot, and in magical writing tends to imply that a magician who is powerful can summon dangerous demons, smite his enemies, and be attended by glamorous partners. There is much talk of mysterious and subtle energies through which this power manifests. The word power has various definitions, among which are the ability to act or produce an effect, the possession of control, influence or authority over others, and, as Bertrand Russell put it, the ability to achieve intended effect. This latter definition is closest to understanding magical power. A confusion has arisen in recent years, as of 1995, over the relationship between power and the core tenet of chaos magic that nothing is true and everything is permitted. Some critics have chosen to interpret this as meaning that the whole point of chaos magic is to throw away all restrictions and find power and absolute freedom. Okay. Freedom, freedom, freedom. Absolute freedom. But, I have a very sorcerer apprentice perspective on learning by doing, in which it needs the tempering hand of an experienced member to avoid unwittingly inviting catastrophe. There is nothing wrong with that. But under a guided hand, learning by doing is probably the fastest way of learning to safely and effectively perform magic. I never had a teacher. I am self-taught. And I learned by doing. I tried a little bit of everything, and I figured out what worked for me. If you feel like you need a teacher, if you need to consult your friends, or whatever, then if that method works for you, then great. Power is this thing that everyone seems to want, yet nobody understands, so it corrupts them once they get it. Absolute power leads to absolute corruption, right? But the concept of power is, you could, in that statement, you could replace power with authority. Absolute authority can lead to absolute corruption. In which case, we don't understand the concept of power, right? I want to get to this one quote. Let's see. This is both a misunderstanding of the chaos approach. Oh, well, I should probably read that thing.
Some critics have chosen to interpret this as meaning that the whole point of chaos magic is to throw away all restrictions and find power in absolute freedom. This is both a misunderstanding of chaos approach and a misunderstanding of the nature of power. What power means to any given person tends to be fairly subjective, right? And everything is subjective. Everything. Reality in general is subjective. And you got to look at it with objective eyes. They are basically the same thing. It is one concept with two aspects. Like being able to cast a fireball or something, right? Is that considered power? Absolute power without restraints is a fiction in the modern world. Anywhere without restraints is anywhere that you choose to look for an example of someone who is powerful, look closer and you will find that power is severely constrained. Take, for example, the American hostage crisis in Iran. Theoretically, the then president, Jimmy Carter, had the power to reduce Iran to smoking rubble within minutes. Although Carter had the military power to do this, it could not actually be done. In the light of this, a more appropriate definition of magical power might be that it is the ability to achieve intended effect within the constraints of a given situation. A common misunderstanding of magical power is that it somehow allows the magician to exercise control over aspects of reality. And a distinction has arisen between power over and power from within. Power over being bad and power within being good. The term power over is used to describe the wielding of power against another by physical, legal, or financial means, whereas power from within is the very personal sense of being able, which arises out of acts of creativity or magic. This distinction has its value in that it enables us to understand that magical power is something that we feel within rather than an external agency. Next, there comes the issue of so-called magical powers as telepathy, levitation, influencing people and events at a distance, sensing auras, precognition for that matter, bending spoons. In Tantra, such abilities are known as siddhis, a word which is generally translated as achievements. Something which is an achievement is the result of practice, discipline, and patience. If you ever do meet a magician who can seemingly do marvelous things at the drop of a hat, it is a fairly safe bet he has been practicing for a very long time. All right, here's the quote. Magic is the quest for power, the ability to achieve intended effect. You become powerful in this sense when you have demonstrated to yourself and others, if you're working in a group or in touch with other magicians, that you can make manifest your intention to the point where you are confident and relaxed that magic is not so much something that you do, but an expression of your being. The understanding of limits and constraints which channel your power is the difference between the effective magician and the megalomaniac. Chaos magic is not about discarding all rules and restraints, but the process of discovering the most effective guidelines and disciplines which enable you to effect change in the world. Magic is the quest for power. And power being, I needed to hear this all day. Right on. I'm so glad you guys could join me today. As lurktastic as many of you were, which is fine. But I love to hear your 2 cents regarding the things that I say, the things that I read out loud. Also, achievements in reality as a gamer, I am all the excite. And there is nothing wrong with thinking of life in terms of achievements, like game-wise. There's nothing wrong with that. If that method works for you, then cool. If you want to quantify it in an intent, and that's your achievement, if that mindset works for you, then kick ass. Waves from Lurkland. Wave. All right. If you liked this video at any point, I do encourage you to, hit the like button. And, you guys are already subscribed and have rung the bell and all of those things. But I will catch you guys on the Discord server.